You got one life, for crying out loud. You might as well just give it all you got.
The Deej, Dan Jourdan.
Your daily dose of reality. Your daily dose of the Deej.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I need my daily dose of the Deej.
I make the news. I don't watch the news. I'm a leader.
The Sales Energizer, Dan Jourdan.
Listen, don't worry how to sell, baby. Worry about why people buy. And it's fun.
You don't need a 5-hour energy. All you need is the Sales Energizer.
Just when I think it's not going to be as fun as the one before, each one gets successfully better. Success. What's the word I'm looking for? What's it going to take to get you into this car today, huh?
And now, please welcome the Sales Energizer, Dan Jourdan.
Boom!
That's exactly it. Do that. Let's do that. My man.
It's Wednesday.
Yes, sirree. You know, I'm sitting down today. Normally I like to stand, but I'm sitting today because of the location where I'm at. But we had to do something. But hey, you know, I listen. I crack myself up each time I hear that intro. I start giggling, and I hear something like at the beginning of it, and then I say, oh, I should talk about that, but then I forget it, and then all I remember is at the end. You know, because that's what that's the thing with politicians. It's like the last one who speaks. Like, you ever see these people like in Congress? The last one who talks in the debate, yeah, it makes sense. That's the kind of one, it's like
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's said before the last one.
Yeah, you just gotta
right?
be last. It's the only one you'll remember.
Okay. Is there a sales lesson in there?
Yeah, I want to thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Here's the sales lesson. It feeds right into it.
All
You're
right.
always looking for a magical segue, aren't you? So I went to go see a prospect, but that became a customer, and we're talking and we're doing our stuff, and the two ladies who were there who were doing this, each one of them at separate times said to me, he said, you know what, you're exactly like you are in pictures and on that podcast. And first I thought about it, I'm like, well, I mean, it's me. Who else am I going to be like? Right. But then I realized it's because of you, Chris Stone. You make me look good.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
I mean,
you
but
do.
people can tell, especially in live video, this is why live video is so great, is like at some point, people are going to be able to tell the real you, right? If something's over processed and edited. And honestly, that's one of the greatest compliments you can get, Dan, is for someone to say, you know what, you're the same person that I saw on the video, on this, listen to on the podcast. Because have you ever done this? It's a very disappointing thing when you are maybe a fan and you've watched a bunch of videos and all of a sudden you meet the person and you're like, boy, that is just not the same person.
Don't even look the same. It's like, it's never even Steven when you meet somebody. It's either you're excited that they are the person or you're disappointed that they're not. And so you almost feel like taken advantage of. And so it builds up credibility. So thank you, Chris Stone, for credibility. And in that same light, we have a special guest here today.
This is a magical segue.
Yeah, this is the magic.
That's right. The magic happening
because
right now.
this guy, he has an awesome new book that's out, and he's looking. And so you might not know this, Chris Stone, but there's people that actually go out and look for podcasts to be on. Yeah, I know.
No,
it's like
really?
Oh yeah, it's like an actual industry. Yeah. People don't realize that. Yeah, it's an actual.
I had to
industry.
get into that podcast.
And so there's so many different podcasts. You want to actually choose. You can choose the ones you want to go on. And so Shawn Casemore, who is an awesome sales guy and wrote this book, thought that the best place for him to promote his new vehicle here for other people's success is here on the Dan Jourdan Live Show, and then took the initiative to reach out to me. So please help me welcome my new best friend, Shawn Casemore. Woo! Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. How's that?
I can't help when I do this just to make sure, right?
Oh, right.
If I'm about to shake hands, I want to. How are you guys?
Doing well. That's funny because that's one of those things that everybody does, but everybody thinks they're being sneaky about it.
Exactly.
Exactly. Like
That's
you don't
exactly
know.
it.
Wait, were you just looking, Sean, or were you taking a sniff?
No, I was still sniff just to make
Oh,
sure,
okay.
right?
Yeah,
I mean,
hey,
when you
can't
get
beat
up,
the
if you do
sniff.
some speaking, Dan, right? I mean, when you do this, you're always looking to see how, am I sweating right now profusely? Is everything okay? So, but when it's more
Yes.
personal, you have that chance, right?
Yeah, I actually just asked the audience. So, do I stink? So it's right there. So you get that whole thing. So my man, Shawn. Yeah. So how's that for an intro, by the way?
That was amazing. That was great. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. And I did find your podcast. I listened to some episodes and I thought this guy would have me on. This would be a lot of fun. So you're right. I don't have somebody. I mean, there's people that hire people. There is an industry, right? They hire people who got, it's me, right? I reached out. I do that periodically. If I find a podcast, I think it'd be a lot of fun. So appreciate you having me here.
That's
so
the goal.
reached out.
You want to have
where
the
are you
most
from
fun.
with the reached out?
Well, reached out. Well, I'm Toronto, near
Yeah,
Toronto.
Oh, there.
Yeah. Canada. I just parked the dog sled before we get the
Nice.
show here, right?
Nice.
Very exciting. We don't make fun of Canadians. Canadians have Canada has a great sales training kind of just a community, and they have a lot of companies that pay for a lot of salespeople trainers to go out there. So I have great respect for though I'll never go there because they make me get the shot. I'm not doing it. So that's it. That's it.
We can add you to the Mount Rushmore of Canadian sales
there you
guests.
go.
Patrick Tinney, Daryl Prail. Who else? Who else have we had?
Who's the guy with the boxing gloves? Denny?
Rick Denley.
Rick
Denley.
Yeah, Rick Denley. I got another good buddy up there, Chris Cummings. Chris Cummings does a bunch of speaking up there. I don't know if he speaks on sales, but in any event, I'm real appreciative of Canadians and for you, Shawn Casemore, because unlike everybody else, you were prepared with your arms in the air.
Yeah,
you might even make the original reel. So
I've been holding them up for 15 minutes, and they were starting to go to sleep. Right? I'm like, when are we? Oh, there we are. Right? So wake them up.
By the way, that's a good workout. I don't know if you've ever done this, but I'm into boxing. I just like boxing, and you think it's a 3-minute round, and so what you do is when you watch a boxing match, just keep your arms up for 3 minutes. You're not even just keep your arms up, and you won't believe the workout you get. I mean, the pain that you're in, not even swinging, just keeping them up.
Just having them up here, blocking your face, right? Even that, hold that for 3 minutes. Your shoulders start to get tired.
Okay, boom. So look, magical segue. So this is how I want you to teach us on how to overcome objections. Whenever I'm teaching people how to overcome objections, I liken it to when I used to take Kung Fu. And the first thing I learned in Kung Fu, I don't know, I do everything. The first thing you learn in Kung Fu is if someone's punching you, you want to just react without thinking. And the first thing you want to do is just put your hands up. That's it. Yeah. Just put your hands up, and then you could work out from there. But when someone gives you an objection, my philosophy is always agree. No, don't agree with their objection, but agree that they have an objection. So someone says something, without even being knowing what's going on, I say, got it. Makes sense. If I were you, I'd say the same thing. Got it. That's it. So whatever you say to me, I'm going to say that. And then I could work around there. But what is your methodology regarding objections?
Well, without getting too deep, let's just take the as you mentioned, right, putting your hands up, right, stopping that. I think rather than just agree, if you were to say to me, hey, Shawn, I think your price is too high, or hey, Shawn, you can't deliver this in the time we're looking for, whatever the objection is, I like to ask a question, right? Because to me, objections result when the discovery session, the questions I've asked earlier, maybe I haven't gone deep enough. Maybe there's something I missed. Maybe there's something that was being held back. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I like to turn around with a question. So it's a kind of an agreement, but I twist it into a question. So I might say to you, so if you said to me, Dan, you know what, your price is way too high. I might say, well, you know what, that's interesting.
Oh, yeah,
why do you think that?
Play.
Okay,
let's role
sure.
play. Here we go. Yeah. But people don't say your price is way too high. This is what we do in the States. That's too much.
It's too much. Yeah, it's too much. So let me ask you a question, Dan. So why do you think it's too much?
Got it. Well, there we are. I think that's perfect. Right. You got to get to the question very quickly. I think it's too much compared to everybody else.
Yeah.
I probably can get what you're selling.
So if that is that your response then compared to everybody else? Is that how you would respond to my question? I say, oh, interesting. Okay. So we maybe haven't discussed this earlier on, but would you mind sharing with me who else you're comparing us to?
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, well, I just, I did some cursory investigation just through, through the internet, and I'm setting up a couple of meetings like this.
Fair enough. So, well, here's what I'll suggest to you. We're a little bit different from some of our key competitors because of A, B, and C. If you have a couple minutes now, I can explain that to you, because if you're going to meet with them, I want to make sure you go in with the best information possible so you can make an informed decision.
Got it. And we're off role play now. You totally agreed. You totally
sweating.
You totally agreed with me. You totally agreed with me. By the way, you see, he's such a good sales guy. I'm talking to Chris Stone right now, that he didn't even realize what he did. And what he did was, as soon as I gave him that objection, he said, fair enough. And then he asked the question. So you did agree with me. That was the fair enough. That's just like saying, got it.
Well, I find, what happens is when people say that, agree with the objection, which, right, that makes sense in some cases. Now, if I want to be provocative, I might disagree with you, and that's a whole nother story. But if I'm to agree with you, I think, unfortunately, and if you're talking to groups of people or doing some sales training or coaching, a lot of people take that differently. They overly agree. So if you're to say, well, you're just too much, they say, yes, we are too much. Yes. I think, no, that's, you may want to kind of acknowledge that I hear you, because that's really what we're going for.
Right.
Let me ask you a question. Why do you think that is? What are you comparing me to? So I'm a fan of not highlighting agree with them too much, because I find it can drive the wrong kind of behavior on the other side. That's all.
All right. Listen, everybody, Chris, don't always remember this. Everybody's allowed to be wrong, including Shawn. So,
I mean, it plays into trust, right? Like if you're too agreeable, right? And like, to your point, it's like show that you're listening. So you got that acknowledgement, like, I hear what you're saying. I
just want to acknowledge I heard you, right?
My favorite one is this, though. The best question to ask after, it costs too much. Got it. Let me ask you this. In addition to that, what else is a big challenge for you? In addition to that is great, because then you could just localize it. If they say, oh, there's nothing else. And then you could just say, okay, so it's just the price. Now we can go to work with that.
Yeah. But I like to write that down too, right? Like that's a great time if you take a notebook or something, or you're even on a screen with somebody. Say, okay, so price is a concern, okay, and then you could be writing down your grocery list for the evening, right? But you take okay, because it suggests, obviously, as we said a second ago, I'm acknowledging that I heard you, and this is something I can work through. But it also sets you up, if you do actually write it down and you try and flesh out further objections, it ensures you don't miss any. Because worst case, if it's price and something else, I deal with the something else and forget about the price, and you say, okay, that's good, let's set up another call. Meanwhile, you have no intention of speaking with me again, right? So it allows you to stay on track.
Very good. Yeah, the worst thing you can do, man, you're good, by the way, Shawn. I don't know. You should put up his website or something, Chris. But the worst thing you could do when somebody gives you an objection is to immediately answer it. Because it's never the real one, it's there's always something more, and there's something behind it. And the worst thing that happens is if they don't give you an objection. How do you do that? Let's say somebody doesn't give you an objection. You're in a sales presentation, and that makes sense. Yeah, that's good. Is that good? Good. There's nothing in there, but there's got to be something. How do you draw out the objection?
I'm oversimplifying here, but I tend to ask questions. So if we're at the end of a presentation, you're saying, no, Shawn, that looks really good. I'd say, well, let me ask you a question then, Dan. What do you suggest are the next steps we take from here?
Boom.
Right. And I could change that different ways. And, some people have suggested to me, well, Shawn, you should tell them what the next steps are. And I would, but if, as you suggested, if there's no objections, I mean, come on, there's got to be some question on somebody's mind here, and I'm trying to uncover it. So that's kind of one of my favorites that I tend to use. Say, what do you believe then the next steps are that we should take from this point? Right? Okay, because that's where they'll go, well, we're going to have to think about this, and and they're going to go into what those objections might be at that point.
All right. So how do you train sale? Now, do you train like new salespeople or companies, or what's your wheelhouse?
Yeah, I really work with companies, organizations, and sales teams within them and my focus areas are a lot on prospecting in today's marketplace, but also really how to create a systematic way. That's what my book plug is all about, right? Creating a systematic process, if you will, to sell in today's economy. So, but I spend a lot of time on prospecting and on the actual process itself. Not as much on closing, because I think if you do everything up front right, the close, I don't want to say it happens naturally, but it's not near as difficult.
Well, who's that guy we had on the show? He's actually a friend of mine. I can't think of his name. The perfect close guy.
James Muir.
James Muir. Yeah. So James Muir, that's his perfect close, by the way. What's the next steps he suggests?
What's the next step we take? Right.
Yeah. Which is really good. However, asking all those questions requires for salespeople, and especially young salespeople, a set of cojones. And I mean, steel ones, because they almost they're initially they don't want any objections. They don't want to hear that stuff. So asking those questions takes some guts. How do you coach people into that?
Well, again, I'll oversimplify it for the terms of our discussion, but what I tell salespeople, especially those who are younger, newer, is you have to expect objections. Nothing new there. And if you're not getting them, that's actually a problem. There's actually a sign that something's likely not going well if you're not getting objections. So expect them, and if you don't get them, ask. Right? You could say another variation of what I said a second ago could be, okay, so you suggest, Dan, that this looks good to you. I'm just curious, typically at this point, there are at least some questions that might arise. What are those questions for you? What haven't we answered here today? Because I'm trying to flesh them out. But what I do with sales teams or individuals themselves, especially newer ones, is say, look, if you're not getting objections, there's likely something you missed somewhere. So, don't panic, but you want to start to solicit them, and even go to the extent of saying, well, I'm really surprised, Dan, you haven't brought up the fact that we're higher priced than our competition. And you might say, well, yeah, I noticed that. Well, there's a reason for that. Let me take a couple minutes and explain, right? So I can
go
use
ahead and
I might
suggest objections.
Yeah, I might, if they don't bring anything, right? I mean, there's two ways to do this. If you say, no, everything looks good, Shawn, I'll say, well, great. Here is, I don't have a blank piece of paper, right? But here is the proposal. If you just want to sign there, we'll get started, right? We can get started tomorrow on this. We can ship this tomorrow. I'll get the production lines fired up tomorrow. Yeah,
I need to think about it.
Exactly. So that's the aggressive way to close it if they're saying there's nothing wrong. And if I've asked questions and they, oh no, we have no questions. Well, great. Here's always have your proposal, your quote, your contract, something ready, even if it's a piece of paper you made up in Word with your logo and a signature line, because that can tend to push those out. But on the flip side, if I know I'm higher priced in the market, right? I've got a higher price solution, and obviously I can explain why that is, or should be able to, and somebody doesn't bring that up, to me, that's a red flag, right? So there's nothing wrong with saying it, because it's really going to give me a chance to jump into what my value proposition is, why we're different than everybody else they're going to meet, what the additional value is that they get from dealing with us. So it's okay if you're not getting objections to suggest one. Just make sure you can use it to your advantage in the conversation that ensues.
Listen to this, that ensues. I mean, this guy has a vocabulary and everything. All right. So, okay. So if I am your book again, what's the name of your book? What does it look like?
The Unstoppable Sales Machine. Now, there we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay. The Unstoppable Sales Machine. So so this whole beginning part of this interview was basically testing you to see if you had the goods, which you absolutely do.
So do we continue then with the discussion now? Okay, I don't get kicked off.
Now I'm asking questions that I want to know, of things that are going on, and that is this. Let's say, for instance, and I'm gonna buy your book, but let's say I have your book in my hand and I can only read one chapter.
Yeah.
What chapter is it that you would say personifies your book that you'd like to share more than anything else?
Well, so you put me on the spot, because I'm actually currently writing my fourth book, which will be out next summer, called The Unstoppable Sales Team. So my head is there. Meanwhile, this book is out. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to pull it open.
Okay.
But I'm going to say chapter one, the very first section. What is an unstoppable sales machine, and why do I need it? because I spent a lot of time taking all the studies that I'm sure you've seen, you know, that are out there around B2B and how buyers have changed and their preferences and how they prefer to interact and all that stuff. And I really talk about what's happening in the marketplace, how it's affecting sales, especially those that have been in sales for a while, but also those entering the profession and their preferences around how to sell, and how we really need to shift our view of what selling is. I talk about in the book, I came up with the term sales concierge, which really means that with all the information that is out there today, I mean, whether you're going to buy a widget or you're going to buy I don't know, legal services or whatever you're going to buy, the first place most people go, unless they already have a contact, even if they do, a lot of times they go to Google, right? They go online, they'll start looking around. There's so much information, it can become overwhelming. So the role of sales really becomes trying to help people navigate that information. Just like a concierge would help you and direct you here, go there, let me help you. That's how that role is shifting a bit. So I talk a little bit about that term in there. But it really, I think that first chapter really sets up why is this necessary, and really what are the changes happening that, you know, I need as a sales professional to be ready for and to use in how I'm selling today.
Totally agree. Now, what if somebody doesn't, you know, it's difficult to change. Yeah. And so what will be the eventual outcome to that person who is not changing?
Well, if I'm in sales and I'm not changing, and let me use an example, you know, that might make more sense. So let's say I'm nearing 50, I'm almost 50, but let's say I'm in my 50s. I've been selling into an industry for 20 years, and the people I deal with are about the same age, right? Fast forward 5 to 10 years, those people are going to retire, likely be replaced by younger people, because if you look at the generations, right, baby boomers were here, Gen X were here, and millennials are way up here. So they're probably going to replace with somebody who's in their, let's say, 20s or early 30s, who we can all agree here would probably deal with salespeople differently. They'd have different preferences in how they find them, how they interact with them. You know, spending the day on the golf course might not be that interesting to them. Going for a big dinner might not be that interesting. So you really have to realize that if I don't start to make changes now and prepare for this, then sales to some degree, and maybe my compensation as a result, may end. So I've got to get ready for the younger generations, as an example, and how I sell to them, what their preferences are, which means I have to change. And if you don't do that, you will eventually be there and experience it. And you can either retire at that point, or you can make adjustments. I think the latter is a better option. So
what's a quick first adjustment? This is, by the way, this is very salient, important information. So I appreciate this, and our viewers will as well. So what is a quick, if I'm scared to change, or it's just, I know I have to do it, but you know, I don't know where to get started. What would you suggest is the first, you know, step I should take?
Well, this may sound a little, let's say, counterintuitive, right? But if based on how you just described this individual, I would say, look, you already have people you're selling to. You've got some good relationships, presumably. You've got some good customers. Contact those customers who might be a little bit younger, or just who might be connected to others who are younger, and say, let me ask you a question. If you didn't know me today, if we'd never met, you were never buying from me, and you were going to buy whatever it is I'm selling to you right now, how would you go about that? And if they say, well, I would use my network, I'd talk to this person, that person. Okay, that's great for somebody of that age. But let me ask you, you know, let's talk to somebody who's younger. Maybe it's a peer of theirs who works in the same department, buys something different from somebody else. So you can use your existing customer base where you have solid relationships and just say, let me ask you a question. If you're going to go buy what I'm selling today, how would you go about that if you didn't know us, know me, and know what we could offer? And that can shed some insights into where they're going and what they're looking for when they get there, which then can help you identify, well, what do I need to do as a sales professional to be where they're spending their time, right? Are they spending their time at trade shows, or are they online? If they're online, what are they looking for? You may not have the ability to, you know, adjust or change your company's website, but your LinkedIn profile might be a great tool that you can use to create the profile to help people recognize what you're selling and who you are and how you can help them. So that's just one example.
Wonderful. So you're suggesting that the individual contributor takes it upon themselves and not wait for their company to change a bunch of stuff and work on themselves. Number one.
Yeah, if you're selling, right? I mean, think about it this way. If I go back, so I saw in your promo about, I can't remember what you said, but it's, can I get you into this car today? I started officially in sales, in car sales, right? Where you waited till somebody walked in the parking lot. And then if it was your turn, you walked out, you tried to build a relationship, sell a car, all right there if you could. So in those days, the tools that we had were business card. And if you want to be really neat, you'd put something on the back of the business card, maybe, or at some point we started doing those little icon things you could scan, right? All sorts of silly stuff. But we took the tools we had and we used them to our advantage. But fast forward to today, where a lot more things are digital, we tend to say, well, that's marketing. That's not me, right? They control all this stuff. I just have me, but I'm not using business cards anymore. I'm not. So you can control your email signature and what's in it, right? You can send links. You can control your own LinkedIn profile. You can even work with, heaven forbid, your own marketing team to inform them, because the biggest challenge marketing often has is they don't know what to do because sales doesn't really tell them what they should be doing, right? There's no feedback loop to tell them what's working, what's not. So,
and all these ideas are in your book?
Otherwise, I could not just come up with them. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, I love that. I love that because I do believe the economy is going that way. It's that the individual is much more important than the company in terms of sales. So when you're training sales teams, do you have a specific, I hate using the word vertical, but do you have a specific area with which you're more comfortable in, or a particular type of sale? Is it a corporate sale or a small business customer, or is it a homeowner?
Okay. Yeah. So I would say more B2B, less retail. That's probably the most narrow I can make it. And then from there, I'll use examples. So I've worked with SaaS companies, manufacturers, distributors, insurance companies, professional services companies, kind of you name it. And what I find is the commonality is that you're always dealing with people, right? That's the thing about sales. If you focus your intention on people, the process behind people is very similar. The methodologies and the steps you take and the proposals and that stuff might differ, but the process and building connections with people, influencing people, building rapport, all of that remains the same regardless of what sector or industry you're in. So
yeah, and I like to tell people that most people are human, unless unless of course you're selling to lawyers.
I knew that was coming.
Then it's all messed up. But so there's no special place. But you say with SaaS companies, with those types of B2B companies where you're working with sales teams, about how long is your engagement with them? Is it a one-time gig, or is it a monthly thing? Is it one-on-one? Is it team?
Yeah, it depends on the need. So everything from probably similar to yourself, I'll go to a lot of different events and keynote those events and speak on topics relative to the audience, depending on what their vertical is, using your earlier language. Then I'll do training, which oftentimes lasts about 2 to 3 months because I spread it out. It's not about coming in and literally vomiting all over the table and hoping they pick something up, right? If you narrow down and bite-size chunks over a period of time with application exercises, people can apply, find what works, find what doesn't, and you can adjust. And then the last is coaching, which can be longer term, both at an executive level or team level. So
I see. And all those ideas are available on your website?
Yeah, absolutely. They can.
I personally, just like you, I enjoy bite-sized pieces of vomit more than all at one shot. I mean,
there's a visual.
You're the one who made it. I mean, that's awesome. So, you got any upcoming gigs at events?
I think I'm speaking at the mid-October at a Retailer Association event in Nashville. I'm going to be speaking a couple online. There's still a lot of virtual. It's interesting how virtual has maintained for some organizations and others have gone back to in person. So I've got a few different things on the go here in October, as well as working obviously with a number of clients, and then committed time, hours, if not days, in preparation for our conversation.
Oh, you did for our conversation?
Yeah,
kidding. I know. You need plenty of. Well, it's because you showed up. We had so much time to prepare before we actually went live. That's how it. No, I listen. I think it's great. So tell me about your online. Tell me about your program. Let's say if I'm a salesperson and I'm an individual contributor.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this and I say, this guy Shawn is awesome. Can you do anything for me as an individual, or do you only work with companies?
I mean, most of it is with companies.
Okay.
However, I do some coaching one-to-one. What I tell people that reach out to me individually is if you go to my YouTube channel, and it's small but growing, I think we're up to 300 subscribers. I'm posting videos on there each and every week. which are a lot of the stuff we've talked about. So that's an area where you can engage if you want video content. I've got a weekly newsletter called the Thursday Thrive. They can subscribe to get practical tips. I've also got a newsletter, Unstoppable Selling, on LinkedIn, that if they don't want to connect with me personally, they want that boundary or barrier, they can subscribe there as well. So, and any of my books, I've got, this is my third, as I mentioned, working on my fourth. So lots of ways to gain that information individually. But if somebody says, no, I really want your help, then they can always reach out to me. And I've got a couple different a mentoring program and a coaching program that may be a good fit.
Well, excellent. And somebody ought to, and again, in coaching and in that type of world that you're in, a lot of it's just, people have similar but not exact types of philosophies, but you're just such a likable guy that the ones take you.
Can I go get my wife? I swear she should hear some of this stuff.
That's right. Yeah, my wife, let me tell you something. I have to share this. So I got a wife who's like, she's like the most honest, but like crazy honest, for all sorts of stuff. So we got to do something with taxes or whatever. We got a new a CPA, a female. For some reason, she wasn't getting along with the other CPAs. Anyway, so we got the CPA, and so we have a bit of a home office, whatever. I saw her downstairs in the basement with a tape measure. I mean, she's being so accurate with the square footage that's allotted for the home office. What planet is she from?
Don't want to get audited, man.
Yeah, if you get audited, you can validate it. That's good. That's good.
That's right. I should videotape her measuring this thing. These crazy things.
That's a scintillating video.
Yeah. That's right. All right. So these coaching things, very good. So you're speaking to a retail organization.
Yeah.
You think because I speak so much that I'm not listening, but I'm listening intently. When I hear greatness, Chris Stone, I'm very attuned.
What took you so long, Dan?
My antennas are up.
Yes.
So retail is a different animal now, especially with the new people that are in there that are less comfortable talking to humans.
Yes.
And so
very well put, Dan. That didn't look real comfortable coming out of your mouth, but that was well put.
But instead of, I'm rocking my chair here and I'm fumbling. But instead of, without giving any of your trade secrets that people are going to see when you're doing the retail association meeting, if you could share some quick tips on how to kind of gain some instant rapport with a potential person that comes into your store.
Okay. So fortunately and unfortunately, this is not going to be earth shattering. But step one, and this will sound crazy, make eye contact. It's pretty hard right? You can't help people. And unfortunately, the downfall of our time with Steve Jobs is I think we've all become, this is our phrase. There's actually studies on the shape, how it's impacting. My chiropractor showed me on people's necks because we're walking around constantly with our head down. By the way, good tip my chiropractor shared to fix that. Every day, every night, whatever, take 10 to 15 minutes and lay flat on the floor with your knees up. That corrects your posture, apparently. And I do it and it feels good. So
now do you fall asleep? Oh, listen, we're big with
sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. Sometimes that's okay.
Well, there's nothing better than like a 4-minute nap on the floor with your knees up. Yeah, it's I love that.
Yeah. So that he uses that multiple times a day. I find once a day in the evening, I can just lay down my back, and apparently that is really good for your structure. So side note for all those salespeople that are glued to your phone. But if you're in retail, eye contact is necessary. Be the first to say something. Offer a greeting. I mean, these sound silly to us because of our age.
I want to hug you. I mean, this is like magic.
Well, you have to engage with the other individual to go anywhere. And then if you're stumbling, you've made, hey, Dan, nice to meet you. And the obligatory, is there anything I can help you with today? And Dan says, no, don't just walk away. All right. You can still hang around a bit and say, okay, well, I'm here if you need me, but stay close to them as they're moving around in case they have a question, because 99.9% of people say, no, I'm good. I'm just looking, right? Used to get that in car sales. No, I'm just looking.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So you drove out of your way in a car, brought the family down in order to just look and get out of the car. Because you could just look by cruising through, but now you're talking to me and you're still just looking. I doubt it, right? So you have to be presumptuous, but nonetheless, make eye contact, be the first to say hello, offer support, and stay close. And if you do just those things alone, you'll find the person is more apt to engage you. Don't creep them. You're not talking about standing and breathing on their neck, right? But if you stay close, they're more apt to engage you with a question, which allows you a chance to help them. That is how you start the sales process in a retail environment. But unfortunately, that's been a little bit lost again, because I think we're so glued to technology and we're not used to personal interactions, right?
So you train for that, which is, you have to train them in those skills. Like, do you do role play with people?
Yeah, I do. It's interesting how many people hate role plays.
Yes.
But you and I just did one. In sales, you have to be able to role play because you're in that moment, you're a stranger to me. I don't know what you're going to say. You couldn't get more real world than that, right? And if I can respond and you go, okay, that makes sense, great. But if it doesn't, we take a chance. It's a coaching opportunity and we move on. So yeah, role play is the number one way to get people to apply.
I role play all the time with my wife.
Yeah,
all the time.
What kind of role plays?
Right before I'm making a call, it's just like, oh God, do I have to do this again? It's like,
and usually he's wearing a cheerleader outfit,
right?
But
exactly.
that's completely different. Yeah, but
I'm
a BFO
this is how this works, you know.
I'm a
the
BFO
show just goes to the
big fan of the role play. All right, so I got up. So what was I going to say with the? Oh yeah, okay. So when you do your
write it down
retail
next
thing,
time.
when you do your retail, that's my idiot savant thing. I could do initials of like whole sentences. ICDCS. I can do complete sentences. Yeah, it's like it's my famous useless talent. So when you're doing your retail thing, I remember reading that book. Oh gosh, a million years ago. Michael Gerber. What was it? E-Myth. Remember the E-Myth?
Oh yeah, E-Myth.
Yeah. So I think it was he who did that. I think it was a furniture store where he changed one word on the greeting and their sales went up 20%. So it was when somebody comes in, you say, how can I help you? They all say, just looking, because that's the dance. And so they're prepared for it. They're prepared walking in, even though they spent, a week and a half picking out the perfect vehicle and finding the place, and they called ahead and all that stuff. Even that, you're going to say, how you doing? I mean, can I help you today? And they're going to say, just looking. And so Michael Gerber said, just change that. Instead of walk up to them and say, have you been here before?
Yeah.
And they're like, they can't, the dance is over. They have to think.
You can't answer it with
just looking. Can't.
Right.
And he said, just that upped sales 20% because it engaged conversation. And you can,
if we have a second here, I'll tell you a really quick story that
we have. Hold on, we got like
all the time in the world.
Yeah, 23 minutes.
Okay, so here's an example of and building on that, right? So when I was selling cars, this is going back a while, but this lady come in one day driving this, and I'm guessing here a bit, but it was a Grand Marquis, probably like early 90s, late. It's just a boat of a car, massive car, filthy dirty, probably lived out in the middle of nowhere. And she come in, and this tells you how long ago I was selling cars. She said, I'd like to look at and test drive a Pontiac Sunfire. We were selling Pontiac back when Pontiac existed. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. So, to be honest with you, it was a small car for her fit, if I can say that. But okay, so we piled in this Sunfire and she takes it for a drive and she brings it back and she, oh, this is great and that's great. And this would be good on gas and this, that, and the other. And I said, yeah, it sounds good. We had a mint condition used gray. That's how well I remember this Grand Marquis parked on the lot, but she wanted to look at a new Sunfire. Meanwhile, she's driving a Grand Marquis. So at the end of it, we have some conversations. And I'm like, well, look, if do you want to have a look at the numbers? If you think this will fit your budget, And she's like, yeah, sounds good. So I show her the numbers. She's like, okay, I'd like to think about this. And I said, okay, that sounds good. So when can I call you? When are you coming back? And we figured that out and away she goes. And again, I was probably mid-20s, 25 or so when I was doing this. So she leaves. Long story short, I call her a couple of times, don't hear back from her, call her. Finally I get a hold of her. She says, well, look, I ended up buying, and it was like, 2003, let's say Grand Marquis or whatever the year was. It was a year newer than the one we had used in the lot. I ended up buying it down the street from you. And what I learned in that moment, and I carry it with me today, and it goes back to our earlier conversations on asking questions. And if you're not hearing what you expect to hear, drawing it out, was the idea that she didn't know what she needed. You can't tell me now you're driving in a big boat, I'm going to squeeze you in a Sunfire and you're going to be happy. And I had the other big boat sitting right there. I could have sold her that all day long, and I didn't. So going back to our conversation a second ago about retail, you know, if people are hanging around a certain rack, right? Let's say swimsuits, and you're saying, well, is there something I can help you with? And they say, well, I'm just looking around. You know, take the obvious assumption here. Oh, interesting. Are you looking at swimsuits? Are you looking at swimwear?
Yeah.
Are you interested in swimwear, right? And if they say, no, I'm interested in jeans, you know something's wrong, and you want to circle back, right, to the swimwear, because it's just, people don't always say what they mean. And in our role in sales is to state the obvious and to apply a little bit of common sense, right? So it sticks with me today. I'm ticked off. I didn't sell that Grand Marquis. I could have got a commission for it, and it still bugs me today.
So what would you have done differently then?
Yeah.
If, you know,
yeah.
like she was
I've
like,
practiced
this
for
is
years.
the Sunfire that I wanted. And you just were like, okay, I'm going down the Sunfire path.
Yeah.
And this is what she wants. And so I'm doing everything I can to orchestrate this for her. But inevitably that wasn't it. What would you have done differently to maybe get rid of the gray one on your lot?
Can I take a guess? Let me just take a
Yeah.
What you should say is, you're way too fat for this car.
Sold.
I'd change my language a bit. I would say I would have her do the test drive of the Sunfire, which she would recognize it's narrow for her, right? And at the end, I would say, are you interested in Sunfire? Yes, blah, blah. I said, let me ask you a question. Here's what we said before. It strikes me that although the Sunfire is maybe what you're looking for, you're interested in right now because of fuel mileage, I don't think fuel prices are changing. And did you know that a Grand Marquis that's even 5 years newer than what you're driving today is considerably better in fuel mileage? So let me ask you a question. Is fuel mileage something, right? Here's where I'm flushing out any objection. Is fuel mileage something you're really looking for? Because at the time, that's what I sensed. That's what she was telling me. Or are you looking for comfort? Because if you're looking for comfort, I think we should compare this test drive you just did to this car over here. Let me get the keys.
Look at that. Yeah, you absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Crispin just commented.
Yeah,
he loves
love it.
role
Can't get closer to real life than role play.
Yeah, that's true. You want to find out. There was a call that actually Crispin and I was on, and we were talking to somebody who was recounting a story about someone that he was looking to hire, and he was looking to hire a salesperson, and the job was paying half what he was previously getting. And so he was interviewing. The guy says, yeah, I'm interested. I'd like to take it. And the guy who was doing the hiring said, well, let me get this straight. You're married. Your wife is used to a lifestyle that you were earning before with this big number. And now you're going to come back with half that number and and I'm expected to think that you're going to last.
Yeah.
It's just,
or that you're trying to get out of your marriage.
Yeah. That's right. There always is that.
Yeah, that could be.
But that's right. You got to flush that stuff out. I always wanted to do car sales. Like, that's my thing. I got two things. After I'm, all done and I'm stuck, I've got enough passive income that I don't need to. I want to learn how to cook Chinese food, like in a Chinese food place. You ever see them? They use their ladle for everything. They turn on the water with the ladle and they shake. They use one tool and they're just going crazy, and it's delicious. I always wanted to listen. I want to work at a place and learn how to do that. And the other thing is to sell cars. Now, I don't really like cars. I couldn't care less. I drive a 2005 Honda Odyssey that we had when the kids were little with 265,000 miles on it. Couldn't care less. I'm waiting for the motor mounts are gone. I'm just waiting for it to collapse, on the highway. And then gives me an excuse. I couldn't care less, but I love the sales process in selling cars. It's just great.
It's changed dramatically.
Oh,
right?
Really? Tell me some good stories.
Well, so a friend of mine is a couple of friends that are in the business. And I mean, nowadays, the people wandering on the lot looking, that still exists, right? Go back to our generational conversation earlier. Older people still want to tour around, test drive. But, a couple of them were telling me even, and I was keeping in contact during COVID as well, just that people now come in, they've done all the research online, and the majority of people come in and say, I want this car, this color, these features, that's the price. You got it or not, right?
Oh, so they're just order takers?
Well, pretty much, yeah.
Well,
now, there's still a percentage of them that are focusing on old school strategies that are still working for the older generation, but younger generations with access to information Yeah, there's very much more an order taker. And again,
Mm.
you move into that concierge role, which is more they've got the information, but they've got yours and they've got a Toyota and they've got a Honda and they've got a Nissan. They're like, prices are close, features are close, colors. I'm not really sure what to do. So your job becomes, well, let me tell you how ours are different. Let me tell you why you should get into a Toyota today. Let me tell you what's important about Toyota versus all those other brands. So you have to flesh out what else they're looking for or looking at, because if they show up with that information, they've done all the research probably by that point. And then you got to try and explain the value in your product, right? Your car versus the others to try and close that sale. So you're more of a, I would say you have to be strong on value, strong in uncovering objections, strong on value, and a good closer now in sales, where it used to be you had to be able to build rapport with people. Now that it's coming in saying, I want a car, and I'm going to buy it from you or that guy, and that's it. I don't want to talk about cars. People don't even want to test drive anymore. They just show up and order. Think about Tesla's model. They closed most of their retail stores, and if you want a Tesla, you go online, you push the buttons, and you make a $80,000 to $120,000 sale online. It's crazy.
You think so?
I would never do that.
But what you have to do is, by the way, all that information is available where? In what book?
The Unstoppable Sales Machine.
Oh my gosh, look
Boom.
at that. The Unstoppable Sales Machine. Very good.
Multiple examples.
I really love that sales concierge idea. That changes the whole way that you think about yourself in terms of service. And that helps. I agree that most of the sale is done on the inside, meaning they're doing their own research themselves. But you still need to be excellent with building initial rapport, so when they do want to purchase something, they call you and not just the 1-800 number or just press a button and whoever else they get. So you still have to be that professional on the front end, know how to close on the back end, and then keep in touch, and that's your sale there. So how does an old guy like you be able to change yourself to use all this new technology? And I'm saying that somewhat joking, but there are people that are terrified about making doing a podcast and making a video like this, and drinking water on camera.
I'll tell you. I got to get my walker. I think it comes back to what we mentioned earlier, which is, the only way that somebody's going to be convinced to make a change is if there's an impact to them that, I guess, influences their desire to change. You and I can't force somebody to change. We can share information, examples, and situations with them that might prompt them to want to make a change. And then once we get them to that point, at least in their mindset, and this is what I do in a lot of the keynote speeches I deliver, is get them to that point in their mindset and then say, okay, so let's talk about those initial steps. Now, those initial steps, depending on what you're selling. If you're selling software, it's a little bit of a different sale versus if you're selling cars, or if you're working in a retail store, or if you're selling something else. So the steps can vary, but it really comes back to saying, well, let's introduce one thing. Let's take our best guess at what's one thing here that could help us in our sales process. So that might be saying, well, I'm on LinkedIn. I've got a profile on LinkedIn, but I'm doing nothing with it. It's not part of my sales process today. Okay, maybe the one thing we do is you go into LinkedIn once a week, you block an hour in your calendar, and you go in once a week, and you start to root around and look at who are the people that my contacts are connected to, because LinkedIn shows you, right, little pictures of people that you're both connected to. And then you can, if you turn off in your profile, your actual profile, so people don't see who you are, they just see somebody from XYZ industry creep me, right? You can go and click on those little people, and it'll take you to other potential referral sources. So now you've got a reason to, if you just want to go back to face-to-face, hey, Dan, the other day I was on LinkedIn, and I'm not that good with the technology yet, but I realized you're connected to Bob at ABC Company, and it strikes me that Bob may be interested in the products that we're selling. Do you know Bob? And yeah, I know Bob. Say, well, would you be willing to make an introduction, or at least can I use your name when I reach out to him, right? And see what you have to say. So there's one simple step that somebody could take and I found most people, they're not scared to take that first step. And if they see value in it, and you can tie it back to their current process for selling, then there's a better chance they'll adopt this as part of that process, and you just continue to build in that manner. So small steps.
Ooh, I'm going to take that. That's a great idea, and I'm going to take it and multiply it by 10. In addition to doing that, find somebody that you think would be a good connection for your customer, and initiate that kind of introduction. Hey, I was rooting around and I have some connections that I think would be good business opportunities for you. Would it be okay if I connected you to?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you can do all sorts of stuff with LinkedIn without having any of the other, like the Sales Navigator. You can just use LinkedIn straight up as it is to find people that you can connect with. And if you're comfortable, you can make connections in LinkedIn and use that route. But if you're more comfortable old school method, use old school methods such as discussions, coffees, etc., but use the information you find and bring it back, right? And
yeah, you're right. The amount of information you can get on LinkedIn, just the free version, people in 1974 would die for.
Yeah. Think about back when they had to write a letter to somebody. Hi, Dan, it's Shawn. I'd like to meet with you Tuesday 3 months from now, because by the time it makes it to you, it's going to be at least 2 months, right? I mean, now we can just text you, right, or send you an email and get a response. And if we don't get a response immediately, we're like, "What's wrong with Dan? Why hasn't Dan got back to me today?" Right?
Yeah,
like,
I'm sending people like thank you texts and like after a meeting or something like that in my car in the parking lot before I leave. Yeah. I mean, it's just done.
I use for that. I like to use two things for a thank you. Two completely, one technology, one old school. There's old school. Right. So if I've had a good meeting with you, I might send this out. I got a package of these sitting here. But the other one that I've been using, it works very well, is BombBomb. If you've had an initial conversation with somebody and you're looking to build that relationship and you don't just want to flog them with emails and you're not going to be able to meet with them soon, go into BombBomb, or there's similar tools, right? Video tools that connect with your email, and you can just create a personalized message. Hey, Dan, there's a really great meeting you this Tuesday. Appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. Looking forward to our discussion, next month on the 13th. And you can send that off. You can track it just like you could in any CRM. You can see if they open it, how many times. So you can use old school, new school, and combine them. There is no right and wrong, right? It's a matter of having a variety of tools. And I like variety in my life, right? So rather than just do one thing all the time, it's going to get boring. I'll pick and choose. Am I going to send you a video today? Does that make sense based on where we're going? Or is it just a thank you card? So
yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. And the thing is, there's plenty of tools out there. I use actually Quick Mail right now, which is very similar to BombBomb. It's been really, really effective for me. I love that thing because people can click on it and they could text you as they're reading it. You could like contact them while they're reading it. By SMS.
The question I get with those video tools that I get most often anyways is, can I use that if I don't know the person? And I always say, no, I wouldn't send a video straight up to somebody I haven't met or haven't had an interaction with, at least maybe a telephone call or Zoom. But once you're there, once you've had that initial interaction, the floodgates are open, and video is, next to in person, the second best way really to try and continue to build that rapport.
Yeah, I love that.
It's a great point that you said, just, as far as knowing the person. There's all this tech and there's all this great stuff, but it takes good judgment and a human involved in this thing. You can't just like cookie cutter this thing and just plop, yourself into a bunch of stuff and spray and pray kind of thing. Or you're going to get results that are, not so great. If you add a human element, like you're talking about, have some judgment before you just start spraying that stuff out, which is key.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just love, I don't realize how many times in a conversation you use the word out, because, the way you say it. I probably say it, as many times too. But
he never said a, though.
Not yet.
Right? Not yet.
And I haven't said process.
That's right.
I said process.
Oh, is that a thing?
Yeah. That's the thing.
I like process better than process. I think I'm going to try to go the other way.
Really?
I heard somebody say today neither instead of neither, and it sounded it sounded smarter. To me, it sounded smarter.
It sounds wrong though. It? I don't know if it's smarter.
Yeah. No, I think, all right. Well, listen, I think that I am a little bit smarter for having this discussion with you today, Shawn. I can't thank you enough. I mean, most of the times I'm hanging out with Chris Stone, and it's just like a roller coaster that never goes back up. You just it's going back down. It's a crazy thing. But is he not awesome with the you just mention your book and boom, it comes up there and does all that. This professional. There you go.
The Unstoppable Sales Machine, available. You can go to ShawnCasemore.com and you can get a personalized
Yeah, if
copy.
you want, or just Amazon as well, whichever's your preference. Barnes
That's
and
right.
Noble, you name it, all the regular places where
Why
you buy.
wouldn't you get a personalized version of it? I
Yeah,
mean,
if
what's
you
that
want.
about? Really? And Crispin Cruz says this has been a great show, gentlemen. So many little things, tech, positioning, follow-up that we can do to increase sales. Couldn't
Look at
agree
that.
more, Dr.
Casemore.
Cruz.
So that's a pretty cool name. I like Shawn Casemore. Were you, it sounds like an athletic name. Were you?
Well,
what was your sport? You play hockey?
Baseball, not a lot of hockey, mostly baseball. But I have to tell you really quickly on that. So most people pronounce it Casemore.
Oh,
I don't know why. No, it's Casemore. You're right.
Okay.
You've got it right. But most people say to me, "Oh, Shawn Casemore." I'm like, "No, it's Casemore." And they say, "How do you spell that? Does it start with a K?" I'm like, "No, Case more." Put them together. But back in high school, I had a nickname, and I won't say it. But if you take the first 4 letters, if you take the more, and put 3 letters in front of it that sound like Cass, but take the K off the front of it, that used to be my nickname.
Oh,
Yeah,
very good.
So I don't know if that had any impact at the time, but it was funny, I guess.
Yes,
Right.
that's good. I mean, you got to
Just
get
meant
your
you had-
attention somehow.
Yeah, it just meant you had more
exactly.
junk in the trunk.
Yeah,
That's all.
It's just bigger.
Yeah.
I should have bought a Grand Marquis.
Very good. Well, I think this was just terrific. I can't believe this is the first time I'm meeting you. I'm absolutely going to purchase your book. I hope everybody out there does the same. We'll put the links below. And for those of you, I'll tell you what is it okay if I give you a compliment?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's always impressive when you get to meet a true sales professional who uses multi-syllables in his words. Syllabic words. Thank you. Multi-syllabic words, and they are the appropriate word for the appropriate time. I just think that's impressive. When we talk about making yourself sound smarter, there are simple things you can do to impress prospects and customers, and one of them is just figuring out how to speak eloquently enough not to say and ah too many times, and throw in a couple extra syllables, and it just takes you miles ahead. And you, sir, are an inspiration to me. Chris Stone, once again, you are unbelievable with the way you can make me look better than I really am.
I like those digs today, Dan. You should do the show every week from there. Looking good.
From what?
Yeah.
With my
Good
digs?
background.
Oh,
Yeah.
these. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, up there. Right back
Yeah, this
there
is
with
cool.
the table
This
and the
is
glass.
so. This is one of those co-working spaces, and I usually work out of a different place, but I was in this area of town today, and this place is, Shawn, this place is unbelievable. It's really cool. Listen, you guys, I thank you all for watching. If you stuck around, you're the best. I'm the Deej. Guys, let's go get them today. Thank you.